Ohai. Ethiopia, the state in East Africa which doesn't have an outlet to the sea. After separation of Eritrea on May 24, 1993. The population makes more than 100 million people, the territory minus 1,104,300 km. The second, after Nigeria, on population the country in Africa takes the 12th place in the world on population, and the 28th in territory. Ethiopia, the state which is most inhabited in the world without outlet to the sea. Along northeast border with Eritrea the distance to the Red Sea makes only 50 km. The capital, Addis Ababa. A state language, Amharic. It is subdivided into 12 administrative and territorial units, 10 of which are states and 2 the special districts equated on the status to states. The country is located in the east of Africa. Djibouti in the northeast, Somalia and the unrecognized state of Somaliland in the east, Kenya in the south, on Sudan in the northwest and with South Sudan in the southwest borders on Eritrea in the north. Differs in considerable ethnocultural diversity. About 60% of the population are professed by Christianity. Agrarian country. DDD volume at par of purchasing power for 2019 was $220 billion. Monetary unit Ethiopian birr. Ethiopia, the old member of various international organizations. She was a member of the Ligue Nazi and became one of the first dicks of the Union. Ethiopia, the founder member of the African Union entering into the international organization of the countries the Act. In the European culture, including in Russian, Ethiopia long time was known mainly as Abyssinia. This name of Semitic origin starts from the Arabian epigraph Eski. Ceased. Also means not the Axum citizens of the Axums are. Further so, including in Arab. The Semitic population of Ethiopia mainly was called Amhara, a tiger, Tigrinya. See Habish. Historically taking the leading positions in elite of the country. Now names, related to a word Abyssinia, are applied to Ethiopia in Turkish. Etur. Habe system. An Arab. El Jabash. Languages. Until recently similar name, Habish, was used in Hebrew. In the European culture the term Abyssinia, after 1945 began to go out of use. The Ethiopian islands were the habitat of people since the most ancient times. What remains of Australopithecus in the valley of the Omo River and the parking of old Avaski culture in the south of Ethiopia testify to. The Ethiopian highlands, the estimated center of formation of Ethiopia in the anthropological type, Kushitsky languages and one of the most ancient centers of agriculture. In the 6-5 centuries BB on the plateau the Tiger natives of various areas of the southern Arabia, including of the Sebasti kingdom lodged. They brought with themselves writing, Semitic language, technology of stone construction by method of a dry masonry and other achievements of a civilization. Having mixed up with local population, they formed Drevnethiopsky ethnos. In the 5th century BB on the plateau the Tiger the independent kingdom D was formed. Broken up in the 4th century BB. In the 1st centuries AD in the north of modern Ethiopia there was a kingdom Aksum. His main port Adulis became the major shopping center on the way from Egypt to India and also to coast of East Africa. During blossoming of the Aksum kingdom, in the 4th-6th centuries, his hegemony extended to Nubia, the southern Arabia and also extensive areas of East Sudan, the Ethiopian highlands and a northern part of the Horn of Africa. Since the 4th century in the Aksum kingdom the Christianity begins to extend. The eminence in the 7th century of the Arab Caliphate led to decline in the 8th, 9th centuries of the Aksum kingdom. Since the 9th century on the northern outskirts of the Ethiopian highlands Islam begins to extend. The Muslim principalities which arose there monopolized foreign trade. In the first half of the 11th century the Aksum kingdom broke up. In the territory of present Ethiopia there was a set of principalities: Muslim, Christian, Judaic, pagan. In the 12th century Christian principalities united under the power flippers. The kingdom established connection with Egypt and Yemen, economic recovery and cultures began. In 1268 or 1270, Solomon over the dynasty applying for origin from the Bible Tsar of ancient Israel Solomon came to the power. Yakuno Amlek 1268-1285 was its founder. The Emperor Amtsina 1314-1344 subordinated Christian, Judaic, pagan and Muslim principalities of the Ethiopian highlands and created the extensive power. The Emperor Yiskak 1414-1429 laid under tribute not only the Muslim states, but also pagan kingdoms in the south of the Ethiopian highlands. The Emperor Zara Yacob 1434-1468 during the board fought for strengthening of the central power, displaced all vassal princes and instead of them put imperial deputies of the daughters and sons, and then replaced them with officials. In 1445 Zara Yacob crushed a sultanate Yifat, some more Muslim principalities, having established hegemony in this part of northeast Africa. Relations with Egypt, Yemen were strengthened, contacts with Western Europe were come. About 1487 the Portuguese expedition, because of a large number of Christians, generally Orthodox sense, recognized Ethiopia as the legendary kingdom of the presbyter Iron, about which rumors went across the whole Europe since 12th century. At the beginning of the 16th century East neighbor and the old opponent, a Sultanate Adil, the beginnings minds the Ethiopian Empire fierce war. The Imam Ahmed ibn Ibrahim known as Quran left-hander proclaimed jihad, and between 1529-1541 almost all territory of the Ethiopian Empire. But after the death of the Emperor Lebendingal his son Emperor Gelaudius 1540-1559 managed to unite forces of large Ethiopian feudal lords and to expel Muslims. Ethiopians were helped also by Portuguese. Ahmed Quran was killed in fight, and a Sultanate Adil stopped existence. In 1557 Turks took Maso and other ports on the coast of the Red Sea. During the same period offensive at the weakened Ethiopia of Kushitsky tribes of Oromo begins. During the same period in Ethiopia Jesuits appeared. Their penetration together with desire of emperors to create absolute monarchy on the European sample led to several wars on religious grounds, especially when the Emperor Cisnius 1607–1632 accepted Catholicism. These wars stopped with accession of the Emperor Fasilides 1632–1667. He expelled Jesuits from Ethiopia and stopped a relationship with Portuguese. Ieyasu Iveliki 1682–1706. Emperor subordinated rebellious vassal princes again, tried to undertake reform of management, for development of trade, ordered the system of customs and duties. However, since the end of the 18th century in Ethiopia, the feudal dissociation amplified again. Everyone large and even average. The feudal lord had the army. Feudal lords levied taxes on the peasants living communal way. Handicraftsmen were considered as the lowest caste, and the merchants, generally Arabs, Turks, were connected with the upper feudal class, a clientelar relationship. Military settlers, parish clergy, prosperous citizens entered the center. The nobility had slave servants. Slavery was also widespread in communities of nomads. In the middle of the 19th century, the small feudal lord Kas Halia from Kwara began fight for reunification of Ethiopia. Relying on small estate feudal lords, he inflicted in 1853 defeat over the governor of the central region's Ali's race, then after persistent fights broke the governor of area the Tiger Ibs race. In 1855 Kas proclaimed himself the emperor under the name of Tewodros of II. II led resolute fight against feudal separatism. The regular army was created, the tax system is reorganized, the slave trade is forbidden, a church the part of lands was selected, the remained possession are taxed. The number of internal customs was reduced, construction of strategic roads began. To Ethiopia the European experts were invited. However, introduction of taxes on clergy led to the conflict with church, which stirred feudal lords to action against the emperor. By 1867 Tewodros II's power extended only to an insignificant part of the country. Same year there was a conflict with Great Britain provoked by arrest in Ethiopia of several citizens of the British Crown. In October 1867 in Ethiopia the case of the British troops numbering more than 30,000 people, including support personnel from Indians, landed. The army of the Emperor Tewodros II contained no more than 15,000 men by this time. The only battle between Ethiopians and British in the open field happened on April 10, 1868. 2,000 British defeated 5,000 Ethiopians thanks to superiority, discipline and arms. After the Tewodros of II tried to make the peace, having released arrested and having sent as a gift to British a set of the cattle. However, the British rejected the world and began storm of fortress of Mekelle where there was an emperor. Without wishing to be given in captivity, Tewodros of II committed suicide. The British took Mekelle, destroyed all Ethiopian artillery, took away an imperial crown as a trophy and in June 1868 left the territory of Ethiopia. After Tewodros II's death, war for a throne began. To Tekle Georgios of II, 1868–1871. It was defeated Yakanasi by 4. 1872–1889. In 1875, troops of Egypt intruded in Ethiopia. In November 1875, Ethiopians managed in fight at Gundeta to break the main group of the Egyptian troops. However, in December 1875, Egypt landed the new forwarding case in Mosul. In March 1876, Ethiopians managed to beat him in fight at Bure. The war between Ethiopia and Egypt was concluded in June 1884, and Ethiopia acquired the right of use of Mosul port. In 1885, the Emperor Yakhanes of the Four Beginnings War mines Makdiski, Sudan. In 1885-1886, the Ethiopian troops defeated Sudanese, but occupation of the northern regions of Ethiopia began Italy at this time. Fighting between Ethiopians and Italians went with variable success. In 1888, the Emperor Yakhanes of Four offered the world Sudan. However, the Caliph Abdullah ibn Muhammad of Anatash laid down an unacceptable condition: adoption of Islam by Yakhanes. At the beginning of 1889, Yakhanes of Four personally led 150,000 army to Sudan, and in March 1889 was mortally wounded in fight on border. The new Emperor Menelik II, 1889-1913. Suppressed separatism in Godsam and the Tiger, recreated the uniform Ethiopian state. In 1889, between Italy and Ethiopia, the Upchalski Contract, under which Menelik recognized transition to Italians of coastal areas, was signed. In 1890, Italy united all the possession on the Red Sea in colony Eritrea, having declared that under the contract of 1889 Ethiopia recognized protectorate of Italy over itself. It compelled Ethiopia that military operations against Italy were resumed in 1894, especially as after 5F. Nashko's mission, Ethiopia had a reliable ally in fight for independence in the person of Russia. At the end of 1894, the Italian troops occupied Adiles, Adigrat and Ajuas cities. By October 1895, Italians occupied all area the Tiger. The Emperor Menelik sent the army numbering card people created from groups of governors of the areas of Ethiopia against Italians. On December 7, 1895, in battle at Amberlagi, the Ethiopian troops under command Mechananuled Mikhail's race, the father of future Emperor Haile Selassie, blanked the Italian troops. The Emperor Menelik II offered the world of Italy. Ethiopia took additional measures. A diplomatic démarche of demonstrative non-recognition of the Upchalski Contract, having sent diplomatic mission led by Menelik II's cousin Tudam II's races to Russia. Italians refused to make the peace, and war was resumed. On March 1, 1896, there was a battle at Adua in whom Italians were completely beaten. In 1893-1899, Menelik II established modern borders of Ethiopia, having won a number of areas to the south and the southwest from Addis Ababa, Ulamo, Sidamo, Kaffa/Kaffa, Jumeirah, etc. In 1897, the Anglo-Ethiopian Contract, under which borders of the British Somaliland and Ethiopia were established, was signed. Ethiopia undertook to fight against Makdist. Thus, the Ethiopian armed forces practically stopped advance of the British colonial empire in Africa. Ethiopia sustained pressure of Great Britain, which ended with the choice of other object for the British attack in the south of Africa and the beginning of the Second Anglo-Boer War. It should be noted huge positive value of the help of the Russian military advisors and volunteers during 1893-1913. Menelik II issued the decree which limited and cancelled slavery, allowing to turn into slaves only prisoners of war for the term of no more than 7 years. At Menelik II roads were constructed, there were a telegraph and phone trade developed. In his board in Ethiopia, the first hospital, the Russian military hospital for the help to wounded, opened at Adwa. The first newspaper appeared. In 1897, Menelik II established diplomatic relations with Russia. In 1913, Menelik II died. His 17-year-old grandson of Lij Iyasu, under the name of Iyasu V, became the emperor. Ethiopia formally wasn't involved in World War I, however Iyasu V taught a course towards rapprochement with Germany, hoping to rely on her in fight against British, the French and Italians. In September 1916, by Iyasu V it was overthrown. The 40-year-old daughter Menelik II Zodita, the aunt of the overthrown emperor, and the regent, that is the actual governor, 24-year-old Teferi Mekinen, was declared the empress. Before he, one of younger sons Mekinin's race, from 16-year age, was a governor of the region Sidamo, then Arias Herer. After the revolution of 1916, Teferi Mekinen received a title of races. Approximately corresponds to the prince, and is nowadays esteemed by admirers as God Rastafari. After the death in November 1930 of the Empress Tuzadet of Teferi's races, it was crowned as the Emperor Haile Selassie. 1930-1975. In 1931 he published the first Ethiopian constitution. The absolute power of the emperor at consultative parliament with the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate was established. It was planned to abolish completely slavery within 15-20 years. In 1934-1935 there were armed conflicts on border to the Italian possession. In October 1935 troops of Fascist Italy intruded in Ethiopia. Several months the Ethiopian troops showed fierce resistance, sometimes trying to obtain separate progress. However, on March 31, 1936 the main forces of the Ethiopian army were broken at Maichu. On May 5, 1936 the Italian troops under command of the Marshal Badoglio were included into the capital of Addis Ababa. The King of Italy Victor Emmanuel III was proclaimed by the Emperor of Ethiopia. The Italian occupation of the country continued till spring of 1941, when the British Army, with assistance of the auxiliary strength gained in the African colonies, freed Ethiopia and occupied other Italian possessions on the Horn of Africa. After World War II, the Emperor Haile Selassie I continued autocratic board. In 1951, under pressure of the international public, slavery was cancelled. Many privileges of the traditional nobility remained, the press was under strict control of the monarch, political parties were banned. In 1953 Ethiopia signed the Treaty of Friendship and Economic Cooperation with the USA. Within the next 20 years the USA provided to Ethiopia financial subsidies of nearly $500 million, loans, and also free of charge provided arms for the sum of $140 million.
By the beginning of the 1970th years, the mode became absolutely odious. The emperor was exposed to criticism from all directions, both on political space and in the people. Massachusetts' death of people for hunger in 1972-1974 became the catalyst of further events. In 1974, measures for improvement of economy developed into sharp price increase and entailed Massachusetts protests. This situation was used by the group of the officers inclining to Marxism, which arose in the summer of the same year under the name Dirk. Process of dismantling of the monarchy gained fame as a creeping revolution.
To the middle of fall of Derg, I subordinated to myself all administrative resources and I proclaimed a course towards creation of socialism.
The deposed Emperor Haile Selassie I died on August 27, 1975, the reason of his death officially announced an illness.
In 1976-1977, Derg strengthened the positions by Red Terror as against royalists and separatists, and minds left.
Practically at once the civil war in Ethiopia, in which resisted to the mode as right. The Ethiopian Democratic Union, the leader Mengashe Siyam, and left. The Ethiopian National Revolutionary Party, leaders Berkaneskel Reda, Tesfaye Debese, Kiflu Tedesi, and also various organizations, populist and separatist movements began. The Popular Front of Release of Tigray, leaders Abache, Siyam Mesfin, Meal Zenawi. The People's Front of Liberation of Eritrea, the leader Isaias Afwerki and others. The leader of Derga, at this stage I became Mengistu Haile Mariam. In 1975-1991 the USSR and some countries of Eastern Europe rendered full assistance to the mode Mengistu. In the southeast of the country, in Ogaden, the Somali army intensively supported the separatist movement of ethnic Somalis, trying to tear away and annex Ogaden. Cuba, the USSR and the southern Yemen assisted Ethiopia in Ogadenski War of 1977-1978 against Somalia.
The policy on creation of socialism led Ethiopia to utter ruin.
The undertaken collectivization of agriculture led to further degradation of the mode. In 1984 in the country 1 million people died of hunger. In Eritrea there was a war of independence begun in 1961.
In the conditions of crisis in the USSR, the government to Mengistu was overthrown in May 1991.
The leading role in insurgent alliance was played by Eritrean groups.
The group of insurgent leaders, at first allegedly Marxists of extremely left sense, then replaced ideological orientation to more liberal, came to the power in the country.
The country since then to the death in 2012 was led by the representative of this group Meal Zenawi, at first as the president, then, after introduction of the parliamentary republic, as the prime minister.
In the field of foreign policy, Zenawi's government allowed in 1993 separation of Eritrea. However, then there came the period of cooling of a relationship with the former allies who came to the power in the new state. The negative peak in a relationship of neighbors was reached in 1998, when the honored win in a border zone, the Ethiopo-Eritrean conflict, which terminated with insignificant overweight in favor of Ethiopia, broke up.
The question of border between the countries still remains unresolved. In 1997, 2006 Ethiopia also took active part in the fate of Somalia. In the latter case, the Ethiopian army broke formations of local Islamists and installed in Mogadishu the transitional government, loyal to Ethiopia, led by Abdullahi Yusuf Ahmad. From internal political events of the contemporary history, parliamentary elections of 2005, when the opposition accused the authorities of jugglings of results are marked out, and I brought tens of thousands of supporters to streets. As a result of collisions, several dozens of people died, thousands were arrested.
Since 2008, armed struggle against the government of Rufián was led by the Jinbad 7 organization, led by the participant of civil war by the former activists of Enal Berkanu Negoy and Andachi Utsizm. On September 16, 2018, Ethiopia signed the peace treaty with Eritrea at the summit in the city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia.
Ethiopia, the Federal Republic consisting of 9 regions or states, formed on ethnic division and 2 self-governed cities, Addis Ababa and Dire Dawa. The head of state, the president, elected for a 6-year term, with the right of repeated term. Parliament, Chamber of National Representatives. The head of the government is appointed from the party which won parliamentary elections. Legislature, 2-chamber parliament. The Chamber of Federation, 108 dix, chosen by assemblies of states for 5-year term. Solving constitutional, both federal regional issues, and Chamber of National Representatives, 547 dix, elected by the population for 5-year term. Ethiopia, the most mountain country of the African continent.
The considerable part of her territory is occupied by the Ethiopian highlands, stretching from the north for the south of Ethiopia.
The highest part of uplands, northern. Here the highest points of the country, Ras Dashen, 4620 m, and Talo, 4413 m, are located. In the east, the uplands sharply break to the Hollow Afar, one of the lowest points of Africa. The western part of the Ethiopian highlands has more flat relief and falls to Sudanese border small steppes. Plains also occupy a considerable part of the territory of Ethiopia. The largest is in the east of the country. It passes with places into the plateau more than 1000 m high. It is one of the most droughty parts of Ethiopia. The small plains clamped between ridges are located in the north and in the west of the country.
All territory of Ethiopia is located in the equatorial and subequatorial zones.
The fact that the most part of the country is located on the Ethiopian highlands explains softer and humid climate in this region. Temperature all the year round keeps ranging from +25 C up to +30 C. Enough rainfall drops up. The complete antithesis is represented by east regions of Ethiopia. There is a hot and arid desert climate. In general, temperature differences within a year aren't characteristic of Ethiopia, but fluctuations of daily temperatures are characteristic. The difference can make about 15 C. The most part of the rivers of the west of Ethiopia belongs to the basin of Nile.
The largest among them, Abaye, or Blue Nile.
Here the largest lake of Ethiopia, Tana, is located. In the east of the river are less deep that is connected with more droughty climate. The largest river, the Juba, Existence of small lakes in the Great Rift Zone is characteristic of Ethiopia.
Made in December 1926, April 1927, a travel to Abyssinia and Eritrea. Nikolai Vavilov, on the basis of studying of a set of collected samples of cultural species of local flora, allocated Ethiopia in the separate Abyssinian center of origin of cultural plants.
14.
Vavilov specifies in the book 5 continents that come from this center a Tefdian set.
He noted also exclusive originality of some types of wheat of Ethiopia, for example, wheat with violet grains, firm onless wheat, and originality of Abyssinian barley, hardy and steady against many diseases typical for views of Europe. In the 18th century, about a half of the territory of the country occupied the woods. At the beginning of the 1900th years of nearly 45% of the area of the country were covered with the woods. Demand for expansion of agricultural grounds in the aspiration to support increasing population of the country led to the fact that more than 90% of the extensive tropical forests are exterminated. Now in the territory of the country there are no big areas with virgin forests. There were tens of thousands of small bosques scattered generally in a northern part of the country. In the south and the southeast of the country savannas are widespread. On the Ethiopian highlands, depending on a high-rise belt, savannas, the evergreen forest with coffee trees, coniferous forests, mountain savannas and steppes are replaced. With reduction of the area of the woods also populations of animals, though today in Ethiopia still it is possible to meet elephants, cheetahs or lions, decreased. Also populations of foxes, crocodiles, giraffes, hippopotamuses and monkeys remained. Rare animals, an antelope nyala and the Ethiopian goat live in the northern regions of Ethiopia. From birds the ostrich, sunbirds, birds, rhinoceroses, kakiki meat. Population -108 million people. Assessment for 2020, the 13th place in the world. Annual gain -2.56%. Fertility -4.14 births only woman. Average life expectancy -66 years at men, 70 years at women. Contamination of HIV -1%. Infected assessment for 2018. Urban population -21.7%. Literacy -57.2% of men. 44.4% of women. Assessment of 2017. Ethnic structure. On a census of 2016. Oromo -34.9%. Amhara -27.9%. Tigray -7.3%. -4.1%. The Ulate -3%. Tugaraga -2.8%. Somalia -2.7%. Other. Etc. -17.3%. Ethiopia, the only traditionally Christian African country. One of her main religions is East Christianity. The Ethiopian Church. Also Islam positions in all peripheral regions are strong. The Ethiopian Church adheres to Miaphysitism.
Among the people of Oromo in the last decades, the Lutheranism actively extends. As a result, the Ethiopian Church Mecane Usis is the most quickly growing Lutheran denomination in the world.
Among other Protestant groups, it is necessary to mark out the Presbyterians, Baptists, Adventists, and believers entering into Christian Pentecostal Church, the World Assemblies of God Fellowship. On a census of 1994, in total Christians -60.8%. Drevnevostokny Orthodox churches. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church -50.6%. Christian Protestants -10.2%. Muslims -32.8%. Native cults -4.6%. Others -1.8%. Fundamentals of the Ethiopian economy: low profitable consumer agriculture.
Thanks to simplification of customs regulations, the level of investments into national economy grew.
The main investors are China, India, and Saudi Arabia. GDP per capita, according to the IMF, in 2014, $1,600. The 173rd place in the world. It is lower than the level of poverty, about 40% of the population. Agriculture, the main branch of the Ethiopian economy, is engaged in her by 85% of the population, 44% of GDP, and 62% of export of the country. Ethiopia is one of the large exporters of the African coffee. Export to 53 countries. More than 60% of export receipts fall to the share of coffee. The area of coffee plantations in Ethiopia exceeds 525,000 hectares. In 2014-15, Ethiopia exported about tons of coffee. In 2021, the record on export of coffee in a month was set up. 29,000 tons of coffee on $114 million were sold. Ethiopia grows up cereals, coffee, olive, cotton, sugar cane, potatoes. Cattle, sheep, goats gets divorced. The industry gives 13% of GDP. 5% working. Processing of agricultural products, production of drinks, textiles, products from skin. Export -3. $23 billion in 2017. Coffee, up to 27% of the total cost. Seeds of oil-bearing crops, 17% the total cost. Vegetables, gold, up to 13% of cost. Flowers, the live cattle and meat products. The main buyers in 2017. Sudan -23.3%, Switzerland -10.2%, China -8.1%, Somalia -6.6%, the Netherlands -6.2%, the USA -4.7%, Germany -4.7%, Saudi Arabia -4.6%, Great Britain -4.6%. Import -15. $59 billion in 2017, cars, vehicles, including aircraft. Up to 24% of the total cost. Metal and steel products. Up to 14% of the total cost. Electrotechnical goods, oil products, chemicals and fertilizers. The main suppliers in 2017. China -24.1%, Saudi Arabia -10.1%, India -6.4%, Kuwait -5.3%, France -5.2%. In 1930 in the country the first radio station was constructed. In 1933 Ethiopia joined the International Telecommunication Union. In 1935 by means of the Italian company, Ansaldo, in Akaki the construction of modern radio station was completed. In 1960 the communication station appeared in Aseb, nowadays in Eritrea, for cable and telephone communication with the vessels standing on raid. By 1988 the country had telephone communication with 16 states, direct cable link with 14 states and a telex with 9 states. There were more than 370 telephone and telegraphic stations with 4,000 people of personnel serving them. At the same time the telephone network only of the city of Addis Ababa totaled 35,000 subscribers. Number of stationary phones: 909,000 in 2008. Cell phones 3.17 million in 2008. Radio receivers 11.75 million in 1997. TZ 320,000 in 1997. Internet users 360,000 in 2008. Roads 36469 km. From them 6980 km asphalted 2004. Railroads 681 km. The narrow track connects Addis Ababa with Djibouti. Main article: Railway transport in Ethiopia. Number of airfields: 63. From them 17 with a hard coating. In 2009. The State Broadcasting Company EBS. Ethiopian Broadcast Corporation, Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. Includes a TV channel and radio stations, national radio and regional radio stations. The federal government issues the Addis Seaman newspaper. A New Era. Ethiopia supports some of the largest and most efficient armed forces of the region. It makes a significant contribution to regional peacemaking. The peace agreement with Eritrea of September 2018 can influence future military arrangements.
Military collisions at the end of 2020 between the central authorities and forces in the province Tigray highlighted internal political problems and also preservation of the illegal armed groups.
Yalk. Counteraction to Ash-Shabaab group remains the constant military obligation, and Addis Ababa continues to give military support to the federal government of Somalia. Armed forces are tested according to regional standards, after the history of fighting. Training and experience are also got thanks to expansion of the international peacekeeping forces.
Ethiopia showed ability to make a significant contribution to operations of the Union in Darfur and South Sudan and also to the Operation AMISOM in Somalia.
Equipment of armed forces of Ethiopia consists, generally of arms and military equipment. VV. Of Soviet period, over these arms and military equipment were got in Hungary, Ukraine and the USA, and modern air defense systems purchased in Russia. Ethiopia has a small local defensive and industrial base which is generally concentrated on small arms with some licensed production of light armored vehicles. Possibilities of maintenance are adequate, but possibilities of support of the advanced platforms are limited.
The cuisine of Ethiopia is in many respects similar to kitchen of neighboring countries, Somalia and Eritrea.
The main feature of the Ethiopian cuisine is the lack of tableware and plates. Replaces them a fake traditional tafabi flat cake. Other bright feature of the Ethiopian cuisine, existence of a large number of spices. Coffee, pride of Ethiopia.
The word coffee came from the name to the province of Kaf where coffee trees generally grew.
In the country the whole rituals, like the Chinese tea ceremonies, from frying of coffee beans to drink of coffee which pass once a day are developed. Begin around 12 hours, and come to an end at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Ethiopia manufactures only a grade of Arabica, in particular, such grades as Jimma and Herer. It is a lot of in the Ethiopian cuisine of vegetarian dishes. Many Christians and Muslims strictly observe religious posts. In general, the Ethiopian cuisine differs in a big variety of the tastes and aromas which are created thanks to a unique combination of spices and vegetables.
Long time in the Ethiopian education, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church dominated, while at the beginning of the 20th century the law on secular education wasn't adopted.
Nevertheless, long time a good education was available only to elite of society and inhabitants from among the people of Amhara, which long time held a privileged position. Lately the government tries to introduce education in a general population, including all ethnic groups of Ethiopia in educational process. In separate parts of the country there is an oppression of radical languages, what the government actively fights against. Education in Ethiopia consists in 6 years training. 4 years at elementary school. Elementary grades of high school. And 2 years in high school. On the international sports scene Ethiopia, it is known, first of all, for the famous runners on average and long distances. At the Olympic Games, prize-winning places and medals of Ethiopia athletes brought only, all on their account, more than 20 gold medals. Among the glorified Ethiopian runners winning in the World Cups and the Olympic Games, it is possible to call such athletes as Abibi Bikila, Mirasifter, Gebreselassie, Kenennis Bekilesmouth, Tiranesh Debaba, Meseret Defar, Tudera Tool. In 2006 Ethiopia for the first time participated in the Winter Olympic Games in Turin. In soccer, in the 1968 years the national team was strong team and won the Cup of Africa. Now Ethiopia is already not so strong in soccer.
However, among football players natives from Ethiopia, Theodor Gebreselassie, having citizenship of the Czech Republic and supporting her national team, is known.
Also he is a player of the Bremen Werder. Holidays. January 6 or 7 Christmas. January 19 Epiphany. March 2 a victory at Adua. April or May Easter. May 1 Labor Day. May 5 Day of Freedom. September 11 New Year. September 27 or 28 Day of the Miskalski Cross. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories.
All of good mood and good luck.